quiet whispers in the air. He steps forth from the shadows, Dakota's there. Hunting myths and legends, chasing the unknown. Machines hum in the silence, gears grind in the dark. FrandsenFiles open wide, scrolls of untold lore. Crackling thunder through the screen, asking for more. Through haunted corridors in towns forsaken, the specialist strides forward, truths are awakened.
We were only doing our jobs. That's the infamous line, ain't it? For people who commit horrible atrocities in the name of whatever flag they flew. We were only doing our jobs. They told this line to escape responsibility, to push it towards others, to those they saw as in command. But what about the few that did break away? What happened to them? It does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. And what was their motivation? What gave them that push? It's not an easy choice to make, especially if it is something you've been brought up on. What pushed them to go the distance? To break away when they realized the side they were on was not the side they should be, that they were being lied to, that those around them, those they fought with, those they served with, were being lied to, and it would only be a matter of time before that betrayal unfolded. What would happen then? What would happen to them? Some of you who know my story may be familiar with the fact that there was a time I wasn't on the side of the good guys. I was not with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And thanks to someone who I've had the honor and privilege of calling a friend, information came to light to help put something together that I've been trying to understand for quite some time now. This will not be an easy story to tell. I can promise you that. I knew that once I opened fire, it was a suicide mission. But I couldn't just let those kids get hurt. They didn't deserve that. I did my best to make sure they were safe. Managed to get a hold of someone I trusted, to get them the help they needed. As for what I was going to do next, I didn't know. I tried to go home, but when I did, it was practically thrown out by my own family. My father was a bit more understanding, but he knew the longer I stayed, the more I was in jeopardy. And he ended up being right.
A soldier from a renegade planet known locally as Taal Shiar committed an act of treason by killing a high-ranking Sitcar official and throwing its severed head as he escaped with 3 fugitives. These fugitives were children, rough ages from 8 to 12 Earth years, sentenced to death and marked with likely false charges to cover for the Sitcar and their appetite for blood. The soldier, a man named Elaryon, was once a loyal follower of his government's regime, but quickly turned against his home as he saw the truth before his eyes. It was during his escape that the official was killed, having no other option but to use security overrides in the commandeered escape vessel to decapitate the creature. Once the children were safe and his distress beacon was answered, the militant operation known as the Galactic Federation of Worlds offered refuge for Elaryon, to which he only asked for a chance to retrieve his family still on Taal Shiar before officially accepting. Upon his return home, word of his actions already reached his family, and they immediately turned against him. Unable to convince any of them to leave with him, Elaryon had no choice but to flee. During his second escape, he was rendered unconscious and captured, only to be awoken on a surgical table. When he started waking up, he realized his torso was sliced open, his ribcage damaged, and intestines exposed. A Sitcar scientist was given Elaryon for study, granted full permission to conduct his examinations without restriction. The experimentations would last hours before someone came to the rescue, likely a squadron from the Galactic Federation of Worlds themselves. As for who exactly was his rescue party, Elaryon was too weak to tell faces apart. He was just happy to see someone human. The squadron recovered him, taking him as quickly as possible to their medical facilities to heal his physical injuries. His future was set with 2 choices: either find another world to live or enlist with the Federation and receive training. To atone for his involvement in Taal Shiar's regime, and with the convincing of a reunited childhood friend and the children he rescued, Elaryon enlisted. As part of his tour of duty, Elaryon and his now wife became part of an envoy program to assist in the liberation of a world falling into the same influences as Taal Shiar. His childhood friend turned wife was first to embark. During his last missions before his envoy deployment, Elaryon assisted in the rescue and rehabilitation of abducted children. One such mission that seemed to stick out the most was one that took place in the American Midwest. The target, a young girl being abducted from her home by Navy forces. The squad, led by now High Commander Thor Han, was successful in their rescue, quickly taking the girl home after a thorough examination and procedure to help repress the ordeal until it was time for her to step into action. Upon returning to the mothership, Elaryon had some time to prepare for his envoy deployment. He knew this mission would be far from a vacation. He would be called into action, but none of it mattered. To him, his only concern was the safety of all those he helped, and if he would ever see them again. Something about the latest mission weighed a bit more heavy on the heart than the others. Thor Han recognized this, assuring him that all would be all right in the end, but left a clue for Elaryon, hinting that a reunion with the child was on the horizon. Perhaps this was in fact a hint that there was more than meets the eye, a thread that served as Elaryon's motivation to fight, even as he stepped into the life and body of the cut of Frandsen on Earth. Perhaps he knew what was to come next. Maybe he knew the eyes that would be on him. But some things in this cosmos are too grand to encapsulate into words. After all, this is a tale that defies all known logic of time and space, love and war, gods and monsters.
Maria Orsich, a subject from the Second World War that warrants its own video for proper explanation. A highly talented psychic connected to German secret societies, and often touted as the one who brought UFOs to the Nazis' attention, but not by choice. She was well aware of extraterrestrial influence, and through her sessions, her work, her channelings, She had allegedly received instructions on how to build a flying disc in ancient Sumerian, becoming heavily involved within the Third Reich with high-ranking Nazi officials. She is a woman of mystery, a woman of intrigue, and many wonder to this day what happened to her. What's the truth behind her story? This is the part where the story gets to be a bit more speculative. As I mentioned, the story of Maria Orsic warrants its own video, but the matter at hand is the information that is unfolded. In her recent Star Nation News 37, which aired on July 1st, 2024, Elena Denon shared information in regards to Maria Orsic, detailing that she was in fact a starseed, detailing that she did in fact get those instructions, and that she had helped to escape off-world from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Elena also disclosed that the information she was provided was not given by friendly resources, by those who align themselves with Enlil, truly regressive extraterrestrial beings. The Sikaar, Draconian race, the Nebu, as well as humanoid races that believed that aligning themselves with these groups would bring them power, would give them rule over the galaxy. And that Maria Orsic, her death was partially faked and cloaked by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, because once the Dark Fleet that the Nazis had aligned themselves with had gained technologies from, even had let ingrain themselves within their armies, Maria was a dead woman. Within these organizations, often the only way out, possible way out that many know, is death, and many realize it too late. There are many who have operated under these banners out of fear, out of slavery, out of greed. Elena also shared that by the 1930s, roughly, is when the Taal Shiar was utilized on Earth operations in dealing with the Nazis. The deals that were made in order for the Nazis to gain technologies that would have helped them in the war. When I started to research Maria Orsic out of pure curiosity, something about this subject triggered an interest in me. And those of you who followed my story may realize that there may in fact be a connection. Whether she and I personally knew each other, I cannot say, because there was a time in history where, rather than be the ones who would help protect her, help her get off world, I was one of the ones sent to kill her. You could say I'm a starseed, even though the term is a bit too new agey for my tastes, though I reference it simply because that is the term that most people would be familiar with. You could say I was Pleiadian, but that does not mean I was one of the good guys. A heavy mistake that many people make. I'm from a planet near the Alcyone star within the Pleiades star cluster, known to them as Taal Shiar. And until recently, Taal Shiar was aligned with the Sikaar Empire. I was not a spy for the Galactic Federation when I broke free. I was one of their soldiers. I believed in the cause, believed that the allegiances that we were cheated out of power, out of glory. It was the result of propaganda that our leaders had toted. When it comes to the Taal Shiar, the Elaryon Taals, these races are supposed to be some of the most human-like. They are essentially like us here on Earth, almost identical. And in theory, because it seems our evolutionary paths were quite similar, we can utilize Terran human behavior as a baseline to try to understand their mentality. Before Earth, before I was born as Dakota Franson, I was known as Elaryon Teuirta, something along those lines. I always feel like I'm mispronouncing these names. I was born on Taal Shiar. I was one of the Dark Fleet. The reason Maria Orsic seemed familiar was because of a mission debriefing I and several others had within our regime when we were being taken to Earth to infiltrate the Third Reich, to trade off technologies, to trade off information in return for servitude. The Sikaar Empire, the Taal Shiar, were being used. Their participation may have been voluntary, But nevertheless, once we outlived our usefulness, we would have been suppressed. We would have been enslaved, maybe even eaten. Within these mission briefings, I remember standing in a room with dozens of others. It was dark, and in front of us were holographic projections, one of which showed this beautiful blonde woman. Immediately I recognized her, noted that she looked quite familiar to Maria Orsich. Whether or not it was the same woman, I don't know. After Elena's recent Star Nation news, I'm a bit more convinced. Within these briefings, we were told that this woman was essentially planted information to help these clueless humans achieve space travel, to achieve conquest, and that our goal was to simply infiltrate, monitor their progress, become part of their army. The deals were already made. We were already allowed in, and high-ranking Third Reich officials were well aware of it. While Hitler did ban secret societies, he was very much interested in what they had to find. The Vril, the Thule, all of their research, all of their work was quickly ingrained for potentially one of the most devious reasons possible. When Maria Orsich became aware of what was happening, she knew it had gone on too far for her to stop. So she had to get out. She knew her life was in danger, which prompted the Galactic Federation of Worlds to help step in, to help her essentially fake her own death and get her off world to where she would be safe. Memories of my time with the Taal Shiar were slowly starting to come back. Figures that shortly after I'd find my wife's envoy here on Earth, the woman who essentially helped convince me to join the Galactic Federation of Worlds, to help me see that there was a potential to turn my life around, to make amends for the atrocities I had done. It figures that when the second she came back into my life, that these memories started to come back. I had recalls of major political rallies, standing behind Hitler himself. I remember barging into homes, killing innocent men, women, children. I also remembered at least 2 points where my photo was taken. And the first thing that came to mind, the second I realized that someone had a camera pointed at me, that I was going to find some way to make sure that photographer never saw the light of day. This is the matter where these situations become a lot more complex due to how time truly functions, where it is not as linear as people realize. The example I always use is that it's fluid. It bends and curves and fits into whatever shape it can, depending on its surroundings. Sometimes it'll move faster, it'll move slower, depending on what all's in its way. And there's been some who I've discussed this with previously before recording this video, who suggested that there may have been a point where I took on that assignment as some sort of higher calling to make certain horrible and horrific things happen in order to trigger good things down the line. But the reality of it was, those were my early days. From what I can tell, were my early days within the Taal Shiar. And it is possible that I have found one of those photos. It is obvious with the exotic nature of these claims, as well as simple societal expectations during this time frame. Piecing together accurate information is difficult. But what is the implication that Elaryon was part of the Nazis at one point in his history? What does that bring forward? It is speculated about 1922 the first prototypes of the Vril machines, Nazi UFOs in general, were being built. The first photo I presented was 1927. Obviously, if you're going to be infiltrating a military, if you're going to be exchanging technologies, you're going to want diplomats, at the very least, monitoring the progress. But who's to say the Taal Shiar didn't go further? It is believed that Nazi insiders have admitted that they had help. By the 1930s, that is when several reports of strange aircraft in the skies over Europe started to really take place all over the world during the Second World War. And it is well documented that there always seems to be a spike in UFO activity during times of high crisis on the planet, whether it's natural disasters, times of war, situations like that, prompting a lot of theories that several of these extraterrestrials may in fact be some sort of intergalactic, multi-dimensional time travelers who are simply observing historical events. But what if there's something more? There's much we don't know. And as I said, the Nazi influence is a complex subject that requires a lot of detail, a lot of research. And had I not provided backups of this very video that I'm putting together, it almost would have been completely lost to sudden errors, completely crashing my systems. Had I not backed it up, you probably wouldn't be seeing this broadcast. What's another point of intrigue is Admiral Byrd's expeditions to Antarctica, especially with the allegations that these were a cover to try to essentially scope out one remaining Nazi outpost in Antarctica. Operation High Jump, officially dated between 1946 and 1947, was one of these expeditions. The official reasoning for Project High Jump, Operation High Jump, I should say, was training in personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions, consolidating and extended the United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent, establishing and utilizing bases in Antarctica and investigating possible base sites there, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, amplifying existing knowledge of electromagnetic, geological, geographic, hydrographic, and meteorological propagation conditions in the area, as well as extending research from similar operations conducted in other parts of the world. Curiously, shortly after Operation High Jump, you have the UFO frenzy in 1947, the Kenneth Arnold incident being the first one. Roswell, here in Idaho, there were several sightings, including one such sighting of 35 alleged craft over Twin Falls, Idaho, as well as one of many saucer hoaxes within Twin Falls, around the country, but within Twin Falls itself, that helped suppress and essentially shift away media attention from the UFO phenomenon. So the claims that from government officials that determining whether or not UFOs were a national security threat, when allegedly all they ever done was just show up, they're funny looking things in the sky. Suddenly that terminology, that basis, that logic finds a little bit more meaning now, doesn't it? But it also, on a personal level, points out something very interesting. They say with starseeds, we choose where we're born. We choose our families and such. Whether there was a legitimate connection between the Kenneth Arnold sighting as well as this massive amounts of activity that was reported between Kenneth Arnold and the Roswell, New Mexico incident here in southern Idaho, where I was born. Could it be I was looking to see something up close? I don't know. I remember part of the recalls taking place in an area that I couldn't possibly assume was Antarctica. I was part of the bases there. And you have several alleged reports from Buzz Aldrin and several other major authority figures who would know what they were talking about, who would go into several alleged areas of Antarctica and come out absolutely petrified of what they saw, that they were not welcome there. And there's several stories associated with that fact alone. So what's the truth? Idaho's influence within UFO phenomenon is not shocking. We have several military bases in my area. Within the last couple of years, since COVID really, we've had a major spike in UFO sightings all around me, some of which my contacts in local law enforcement even brought to my attention, helped direct me to areas of social media to help monitor the craft's flight patterns because it was receiving that many updates. This is something that's probably going to have to come back to. I don't know. Maybe see if we can find someone who's willing to help with past life regressions. But where this story is going makes you wonder if they'd be able to handle the truth that might come out. I guess we'll never know until we try. Besides, while the negative forces may not have much influence over the Earth right now, this story is far from over.
Concrete dreams, shadow sky raises up high. Electric pulse, heartbeat like a battle cry. Move through the haze of the fallout dawn. Burn scars deep fired up to carry on. Concrete dreams, shadow sky raises up high. Electric pulse, heartbeat like a battle cry. Move through the haze of the fallout dawn. Burn scars deep fired up to carry on. Next journey calling heartbeats pounding wrong. No looking back, no wishing on a broken star. Stepping forth into the raging storm. Soul reborn, thunder rise, transform. Metal wings cutting through the rust. No trust in the past, shattering to dust. Wire sparking, blood and iron ignite. New dawn breaking endless, fighting the night. Toxic wasteland beneath the weary feet. Crimson sky burning with deceit. Martian warriors of the forgotten rest. After the endless dark lies our quest. Next journey calling heartbeats pounding wrong. No looking back, no wishing on a broken star. Stepping forth into the raging storm. Soul reborn, thunder rise, transform. Metal waves cutting through the rust. No trust in the past, shatter it to dust. Wire sparking, blood and iron ignite. New dawn breaking endless, fighting the night. Time to rise, transform. Okay, coming. Scroll that day. Don't looking back, no wishing on a broken star. Stepping forth into the raging storm. Soul reborn, thunder rise, transform. Metal wings cutting through the rust. No trust in the past, shatter it to dust. Wire sparking, blood and iron ignite. New dawn breaking endless, fighting the night. Toxic waste, to the rise, transform.